TVGrace presents the inexpressible words of God, the gospel of grace, on the lips of Jesus Christ man. Abba, Father.
This is the word of faith that we preach. Near you is the word in your mouth and in your mind. And with that, I can be prosperous, healed, with just those two ingredients without moving. Jesus said it. He said in the days of his flesh, "Come to me, all you who are weary, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." He said, "Behold, I bring good news of salvation." And they were new, all right? That's why they don't understand us. They say, that ministry is too easy. People enter those learning centers and they sit there and they just speak. They don't fast. They don't do retreats, visuals, or retreats seeking the presence of God because they say that they are complete and perfect. They don't invoke God to come down because he's already come down. They don't practice the washing of feet because they are complete and they don't have to demonstrate false humility. Those people there do nothing. And it's true. We don't do anything. If it was through works, you would have had to help me come up those steps there, because imagine with all the nations we have, I would have been worn out. Let's just say when you work with people and represent people, for example, every day I get from all the nations situations. So then, how do I prove that truly I am using the mouth and the mind? Well, as soon as I hear about the problem, right there, I apply my mouth and my mind. And I say angels, and let the angels work it out, not me. Oh, and when I say angels, take care of that. I'm not the following day making calls here and there that you do this or this, because then the telephone bill gets, and then you begin to worry about something else by trying to fix it a different way, and the accounts begin to arise because you ruin everything. You can't get involved here because the angels are at your service, but they are at your service if you honor what they have established, mouth and mind. If you put your occupations and your worries, the angels will say, he spoke, but he's not showing evidence. I see him too occupied. He consistently talks about the problem. Hello. How many are in God's rest? If you work immediately, you enter into problems. And if to complain is to resolve problems, we would complain all day. As a matter of fact, look at the problem you can bring upon yourself. Let's go back to Romans. How come he said everything to the Romans? Don't you see that from there, death went out to all of the nations? Well, from here, we're going to take life unto all nations. Romans 4, what does it say? In verse 4. Now, to him who works, what does it say? The wages are not counted as what? As grace, but as debt. As debt. So if you do works, who are you indebted to? Moses. Moses is going to tell you, all right, you did works. Well, now fulfill the 613 precepts of the law. Praise him now. So you are indebted. That's what happens to these churches around about us. They're not going to understand us. They're in debt. And our account has already been paid for. I'm saying we have a lot of debt here in this world, in the flesh, to be indebted with our angels. This is strictly the guidelines that I am speaking tonight. This ain't just a sermon here to fulfill 45 minutes. I'm speaking to the nations. On this message depends whether all nations and all of you begin to reign in life in a more excellent way. And the angels are willing, but they're extremely demanding with the guidelines. And the guidelines are those that do works here their salary is not counted as grace, but as debt. And to be indebted to Moses, it's a problem because Galatians 3:10 says, for all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. Pastor, so what you're telling me is that all of these associations of pastors in Miami are under a curse? Respond. Go to the Word. I'll show you. How about all those folks on television that give advice? Listen, all of them, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Those that live and violate these principles are under a curse. Look at verse 16 of chapter 4. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be according to grace, so that the promise may be sure for 2 or 3 to all the descendants, but is by faith that it might be according to grace. Listen, in Romans, let's look at chapter. Let's squeeze the flour in the cup so we can pour a little more flour. 11:6 of Romans. And if it is by grace, then it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is not works. But if it is of works, it is no longer by grace. Otherwise, works is no longer works. If it's works, then it's not grace. The idea is not to mix. The problem is mixing. As soon as you mix, you annul the covenant. You take a barrel of crystal water and drop a little iodine, pop, and you adulterate the whole barrel. We live in a corrupt body. Therefore, fruits are also in corruption. You have 99 apples that are good, and you drop a rotted one in the bag. The rotted one can't fix. The 99 can't fix the rotted one because we are in corrupt bodies. So therefore, if you live in grace and you drop a little work in it, the work has the ability to annul all the grace. You become indebted, and the debt comes with high interest rate, 45%. You get indebted right away and you annihilate your life. You lose your joy. The angels don't accompany you because they see that you mix. You're mixing in your mouth and in your heart. They see you mixing, and your service becomes annulled. And you can agree with me, but you can also be saying, that's what's happening to me because I have not yet become sound in this word of grace. I have not entered his rest. I have a foot here and a foot there just in case. Yes, because there are people like that. No, that Jose Luis teaches, that is for you to lay down and go to sleep. I'm not talking about laziness. I'm talking about entering God's rest. I'm not a lazy person. I'm always running. I work, but in God's rest. And you work, but in God's rest. And Pastor, where is rest? Where does rest lie? In the way you lay your arms on the side of your body? No, it is in your mind, and you manifest it with your mouth. Let's go to the letter of Corinthians. First letter to the Corinthians, chapter 1. Look at what verse 21 says. For since in the wisdom of God, the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those believing. And what is the foolishness of the preaching? To call the things that are not as if they were. That is foolishness. The foolishness of the preaching. Say, everything is well. And the neighbor will look at you and say, everything is well? With all the problems you have? Yes, it is a foolishness. That's why people don't understand you. To say, I'm prosperous, I'm healed, all is well. And when you say all is well, your physical body is waiting for you to leave here to say everything is well, and then the human logic is going to minister to you and say, well, keep with that nonsense that everything is well and that you're blessed. And those fiery darts, you have to bring them to captivity. They sometime are firing at me and I have to be fighting my battle. And I said, you don't get tired? How many more darts you have left? It is the good battle. You have to fight the good battle of the faith. There is a good battle, but you have to fight it with the mouth and with the mind. And you can't think that you know it all. You can't. No, it's that I've been here 10 years, Apostle, and those you repeating that repetitive message. No, this brings another glory. If you put this to practice, all things are going to work together for good, because you're going to enter into a spirit of faith that even when things are not going well, I don't deny the Lord in this, because it says that all things work together for good for me. So the word of faith tells me that even in this situation, I have to give thanks. I have to give thanks. I have to recognize the Lord in this. The word of faith is a folly. And listen, God, it says it pleased. Listen, it pleased God. Say it pleased God. Now it needs to please you to save the believer. But it isn't to save him from his spirit, because he with one offering saved your spirit. It's to save the believer of this mediocre life that they live here on earth. To save them, but with the folly. That is a science that God, first he gave a covenant of works, and everyone got used to doing works. Don't you see that we are incurably workmen? Listen, somebody invites you out to eat and you can't receive without saying, next time I invite you, because you have to pay back. That is in your veins, in your mind, in your lifestyle. Can't you just receive something and be thankful and be quiet? Thank you. That's what Thanksgiving is for. That's where it comes from. Grace. Get into this folly. Let me tell you, this works. Unless your lifestyle works better, then stay with that and don't get into this. If your lifestyle of worries and concerns, you prefer that, then you can also do it that way, because everything is lawful. You can become extremely worried and complain right now. You can do that. It's not suitable, but you can do it. You don't have to sow when they gathered the offering, but it doesn't suit you. You don't have to behave. You can misbehave. You have with what to misbehave with, your body, but it don't suit you. The Bible says everything is permissible. You can do whatever you want. What are the rules to become a member here? There are no rules here, but what can you do or cannot? No, all things are permissible, but not everything is profitable. But you can do whatever you want. All religions are based on rules. They call them the rules of faith. I wish they were rules of faith. These are rules of works. Oh, to be a member here, you have to be like this. The women have to dress this way. This one has to live this way. You have to qualify by doing that. And they give you a list. And then they sent out a committee for membership to see if you qualify. And then perhaps 6 months later, they bring you forward. So-and-so family, come forward. Somebody opposed for these families to become members of the church? What if someone lifts their hands and say, I oppose? Why? Because he belongs to a sports team, or he likes to target shoot. He's always shooting, and that's dangerous. He can kill someone. And they call that the rules of faith. I wish there were rules of faith. If they were rules of faith, they would have no rules. So therefore, look at what it says. Let's begin to finish. Hebrews chapter 6. Hebrews chapter 6. This is the spirit of faith of the new millennium. If you don't get in through here, you are fried. you're not well if you don't come through here. Because in this new millennium, God has it programmed so nothing works other than the true gospel. Because for this gospel to arrive to all nations, we have to destroy the other. And we don't destroy by speaking bad or slandering, but by showing the truth. The lie will be silent. I would like to destroy all the churches, erase them, remove them from everywhere. But I have to say that by speaking the truth, not carnally, nor abusing people, nor mistreating people. It is speaking the truth, the lie will dissipate. That's the way the lie will be removed. In chapter 6, verse 11 to Hebrews, there's a recommendation here the apostle gives. It says in verse 11 and 12, and we desire that each one of you, each one, this isn't through family, each one show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end, that you do not become sluggish, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherited the promises. Listen, the same diligence. You know what it is to be in the same diligence? To confess, to continue confessing what Paul says about your position. If this doesn't work, then look for a psychiatrist or a psychologist to help you. But this works, right? Notice, let's look to first letter to Timothy before Hebrews. In the first letter to Timothy to see a final exhortation. In chapter 1, verse 18, notice what Paul told Timothy regarding two individuals that committed shipwreck in their faith. And if they committed shipwreck, you can also commit shipwreck in your faith. A blessed that's committed shipwreck. It says, this command I entrust to you, Timothy, my son, so that according to the prophecies previously made concerning you, that by them you may wage the good warfare, maintaining the faith in being diligent, and a good conscience, which some have rejected concerning the faith, who have committed shipwreck, of whom are Hymenaeus, and Alexander, who I delivered to Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme. They blasphemed against the message of Paul. What is it to deliver someone to Satan? To get out of faith. If you get out of faith, you get out of the regimen of the Spirit. And if you enter into the regimen of the flesh, you're entering into the regimen of the flesh, meaning the hands of Satan. It isn't that there is a third party, a devil out there with a trident waiting for you. No, you are the devil with the trident, the flesh that will eat you up. Because to get out of faith is to destroy yourself, to age before time, to be worrisome. Don't you see that it removes you from certitude, from the substance of what you hope for? That's what faith is, the substance of the things you hope for, the conviction of things not seen. To confess, things are going to be okay. Things are going to be fixed. You have to be in certitude, have conviction, because Paul had to deliver them to Satan. In this community, you don't fit in. You are in a guilty conscience. What it is to be in a guilty conscience, to be in the law of Moses. Everything that doesn't come from faith is sin. So they entered into a guilty conscience. No, something wrong is going on here. Something bad is going to happen. You get out of faith, you're going to be destroyed. If I was to commit shipwreck on my faith, imagine, you know how much we've advanced and grown? Why do you think I teach these things? Because first they rebuke me. They give them to me as vitamin. God tells me, look, don't you see that the pressures that come to a human being is to remove you from faith? And those pressures come to me finances, concerns, what this one says, what they speak, personal situation, everything that comes through there comes to me to squeeze me, that comes to destroy you. Don't you see that we are blessed and God allows for it to squeeze you, to give life to your flesh? Don't you see that He's given you the flesh to perfect your spirit? He wants you to live in the spirit, so He makes things difficult in your flesh so you can suffer. God is the one that allows it. So in my case, He squeezes me, but He sees that I look for the way out. There's something wrong here. So I look for wait, everything is well. I deliver myself from the claws of Satan, which is my flesh. That's why Paul said to Timothy, take heed of yourself and the doctrine. The problem is in you and in the doctrine, the faith. You enter into faith, you resolve everything. You're going to die? Well, angels, you either give me life or let me die. But regardless, Paul says, whether I live or die, we are of the Lord. Or you kill me or allow me to live. But don't leave me here in neutral. It is necessary, the patience for the assurance of hope till the end. This is for the brave. But notice how the flesh ministers telling you, no, you're not doing well. You haven't done this. And it begins to bring a guilt trip to bring you into a bad conscience. If it delivers a bad conscience, it has you in its territory. It's like the crocodiles that they grab you and then they sink you into the water while you drown, so you don't battle with them. And then they bring you above water and eat you up. Well, that is the way the flesh. What do you want? For everything to be rosy? No, I've already confessed. I've already sown my seed. No, God is going to raise up the oven, raise up the heat a little more. So try Him. You know for what? So He can take you to the life of the Spirit. The Lord said it. The disciple is not greater than his master. Right? Listen, this year has been one of the most difficult years of my life. But it is where I've bared more fruit. When it's been the worst of times for me, situations here, family, ministry, and the best messages have come out of my trial. Why? Because the flesh doesn't allow you to see the life of the Spirit. While everything is going well, oh, reigning in life, bless, how are you? But after you go through this, another life begins to take place. You enter into a government that nothing can come against you, but you have to enter into the spirit of faith. Notice that you have all the right to get into the spirit of faith because you are very special. You know why you are very special? Because you were sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. And Luke said, when you receive the promise of my Father, you will receive power through the promise. And the promise was after you heard the word of truth, also having believed in it, you were sealed. So having the promise, you have all the right to live in the realm of faith with style. That is with style, with the Bible, with knowledge. That is a special identity. It makes you unique. You're not just anybody. You are a part of the congregation of the just spirits made perfect. You have to enter into that spirit. What happens is that we have to work with your laboratory mind. That mind of yours that has you. Without the mind, listen, because close to you or near you is the word in your mouth and in your mind. So the mouth is so you can confess, but if your mind is not washed with the word of grace, then what the mouth speaks are things that the angels don't respect. Have you ever seen people that speak so much nonsense that wear you out, or radio program. He says, change the station. Well, in the like manner, the angels, when they tune into you, let's see what they say. Oh, God. This is a lifestyle. And I'm not saying that it's easy. No, sometimes things slip. The brother, the son. Hey, Dad, what took place here? You said I'm blessed, and now you're telling me to be careful with drugs? I'm going to school. I have angels. Why are you doubting? Better off telling me, be careful with my angels, but not with drugs. Right? You can't get out of God's rest. Notice I wrote here a note. After the cross, only the mouth and mind are used after the cross. Now, before the cross, you couldn't use your mouth and mind. You have to do works. The man that does before the cross, but after the cross, now the man that does not, but thinks and confess. There's a huge difference. If you do works, you are committing shipwreck. And everyone that's not in this spirit eventually is out of this ministry, because there are folks that entertain themselves with predestination, 2 seas, 3 worlds, chosen angels. But if you don't have this ingredient, one day you become so vain and puffed that you commit shipwreck. What you have to nourish yourself with is, this is the word of faith which we speak. These mysteries. Listen, these mysteries have been written here for 2,000 years. I don't know why you and I never noticed. Because there are many folks that say we have a lot of revelation. Hector was telling me today that a pastor with one cassette of one of our teaching, he says, this is the greatest thing I've ever come across. And with one teaching, he was unveiled. And he has 2 hours. And he says on radio, and he says to Hector, you can take it over and speak this grace. I don't dare to speak any longer. But that's always been there. But you know what happened? Bless is that the spirit of faith was hidden. God hadn't given, if he was to give the spirit of faith, they would have discovered it. You hear many speak about predestination, and you see volumes, these books this wide on predestination. For instance, Calvin this thick, one of his volumes, speaking on predestination. Until now, no one understands the topic. You know why? Because the spirit of faith was hidden. The spirit of faith is the mind of Christ. So God hid the gift of faith. He gave it to Paul. Paul is the one that instructs me. But when Paul died, he hid it. And they mixed the law with grace. And everything that you mix, it's adulterated. That's why they're called the harlot. The religious harlot and her daughters. Everything is adulterized. So one day, when I least expected it, was raptured to the third heaven, and he revealed this to me. And it took a lot of years. It takes you less time because I've already gone through the work. I've ground the glass. And you've ate it, but this was hidden. Notice, bless, if the word is enlightening you right now, you must say, man, this is easy. I was very confused. How many say I was confused? Man, we were confused because this is a spirit, a lifestyle, but the spirit is manifest through this knowledge. Here you have to have 1,000 points regarding faith. There is an analogy of a blessed that died and his body was buried, but his spirit went to heaven. And when he entered heaven, he wasn't used to the environment. So he walked a little, and he came across Paul. So then the bless wasn't from our ministry. He was from the system. No? And when he saw Paul, he says, God bless you, Paul. And Paul said, wow, this man he's in bad shape. He's in critical condition. And he says, so where are you going? He says, no, is that I've just died and they celebrated a mass and I'm on my way to the kingdom of God, to heaven. He said, to heaven? It's difficult to enter there. What do you mean it's difficult? You have to have 1,000 points before you come before the Lord. You need 1,000 points. So he said, Paul, help me out here. And you know how Paul is, that he begins to discern you. Well, tell me something. What did you do in earth? He says, well, I've attended all the services at the church. Well, you have 2 points for that. What else did you do? I gave offerings, my tithe, 6 points. What else did you do? I visited the hospitals and the sick and talked to the ill there in the Jackson. And he says, well, I'm going to give you 4 for that because the elderly, the sick, and well, I'm going to give you 8 plus 8 is 16. What else did you do? Well, I used to also, when the pastor asked for help, I would clean and listen, I didn't drink rum and smoke, and I would not attend movie theaters or the beaches. Well, you have around 35 points already. And he said, 35? And how many you say I need? 1,000. And then Paul said, what else did you do? What else did you do? He that does shall live by. So when the man began to sweat, wow, it's difficult to enter there. A man can only enter by the grace of God. You have 1,000 points. Bless.